Chapter 2120. Xia Jiolong declared the battle in a domineering manner. He wanted the world to witness that no one could take away his number one position. Yi Qinghan stood in the pavilion and did not speak for a long time. He did not say whether he would accept the challenge or not. At this time, everyone was looking forward to this battle. They were so excited that they felt like they were the main character and should be the one to accept the challenge. Shui Lin looked up at the emotionless Yi Qinghan and asked curiously, "Uncle Yi, are you not going to accept the challenge?" Yi Qinghan was stunned for a moment, then clenched his fist. Seeing that many people in the Holy Empire were staring at him and Shui Lin, he took a deep breath, licked his white teeth and said, "Come down with me." Then, Yi Qinghan walked down the pavilion with Shui Lin, making everyone even more anxious. Do you think Yi Qinghan will accept the challenge? With his strength, he can definitely compete with the Nine Dragons Crown Prince. He defeated Gui Shensi in one move. Even Xia Jiolong might not be able to defeat such an expert in one move. So I think even if Yi Qinghan does not accept the challenge, it is definitely not because he is afraid of him. It is very likely that he does not want to reveal too much. Don't talk so much nonsense. If he does not fight today, it means that he does not dare to fight. The Crown Prince is recognized as the number one in the world. For so many years, no one has ever shaken his throne. Today, Yi Qinghan probably can't do it, or else he would have already made his move. Some people were unhappy with Xia Jiolong and were willing to speak up for Yi Qinghan. However, there were also a large number of experts who were fans of Xia Jiolong and hoped that Xia Jiolong would defeat Yi Qinghan. Both sides argued endlessly, but the number of people was about the same. Gui Shensi's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. He still had many powerful trump cards that he had not revealed. He had underestimated his opponent, otherwise he would not have been defeated in one move. He wanted to regain his face and fight again. Recalling Yi Qinghan's attack, Gui Shensi felt that he still had a chance of winning. "Let me fight him again. I don't believe he can defeat me in one move," Gui Shensi said coldly. Xia Jiolong turned his head to look at Gui Shensi. He gently fanned the nine-dragon fan and shook his head. "You don't have the Eternal Saint robe or the Eternal Saint weapon. How are you going to fight him? It's not that I'm looking down on you, it's just that you don't have enough foundation." Gui Shensi exhaled heavily and comforted himself. He thought to himself, that's right, he's only relying on the Yin-Yang Bagua Taoist robe and the eternal gloves. When I go back, I must ask the God Ancestor to help me refine the Eternal Sacred Weapon and the Eternal Sacred Robe. It's best if you take back your face this time. The discussion became louder and louder. Yi Qinghan had not appeared yet, but some people hid in the crowd and cursed loudly. They were all cursing Yi Qinghan, thinking that he was too arrogant. He should have just said whether he wanted to fight or not. He was acting so mysterious, like a saint. Xia Jiolong was not in a hurry, because he had fought Yi Qinghan so many times. He knew that Yi Qinghan would not give up because of fear. Either he did not want to fight today, or he was afraid that Xia Jiolong would capture Lin Shui, so he had to give up this battle. Xia Jiolong smiled. He was confident that if he fought, he could win. If he did not fight, he would win the momentum and the overall situation. The throne would always be his. At this moment, Yi Qinghan stepped out of the city wall with Lin Shui. His slender figure cast a long shadow under the sunlight. The short and thin Lin Shui followed closely behind Yi Qinghan. She stared at Xia Jiolong with her big eyes. Maybe it was because of her bloodline, but when she saw Xia Jiolong, her eyes were full of anger and resentment. She wanted to kill him. Boom! Heaven and earth roared. Dark clouds covered the sky and lightning flashed. Murderous intent filled the air. Thousands of heroes gathered outside the city. The saints stood proudly in their places. They all wanted to see if the throne would change hands today. The Cloud Dragon Sage wanted Yi Qinghan dead all the time. He could not fight in front of everyone. Otherwise, the Heavenly Grandmaster Sage would kill him. Therefore, he could only hope that Xia Jiolong would kill Yi Qinghan today. "Jiolong, you must kill Yi Qinghan today. Even if you have to team up with the son of the ghost god, the honor of being first is not important. Otherwise, you will not have a chance." The Cloud Dragon Sage reminded. Xia Jiolong gently fanned the Nine Dragon fan. He stared at Yi Qinghan, who was walking out of the city. He nodded slightly and secretly sent a voice transmission. "Uncle, please capture Lin Shui behind him. She is the princess of the Daluo astral realm. The starry chessboard is in her hands." The Cloud Dragon Sage only noticed Lin Shui now. His eyes flashed. The starry chessboard was a supreme saint artifact. If someone could control it, even if they could not be compared to the Saint Lord, they would be much stronger than other eternal saints. The Cloud Dragon Sage took a deep breath and nodded fiercely. Yi Qinghan stirred up the momentum of heaven and earth. He took Lin Shui directly to the eternal saint of the Shi sacred ground. Yar Saint was right beside him. The eternal saint of the Shi sacred ground was a middle-aged man. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. He was fundamentally different from the Easterners. He looked slightly rougher. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and said, "Greetings, Saint. I am Yi Qinghan. This time, I want to go to the Shi sacred ground to propose marriage. I have prepared a big gift. It is our first time meeting. I hope you can take care of me." The eternal saint was the son of the emperor saint of the Shi sacred ground. He was also Yar Saint's grandfather. Yar Saint had already told him about Yi Qinghan's purpose, so he was not too surprised. He just nodded gently and said, "We can talk about Yar later. I can't make the decision. Let's talk about it when you arrive at the Shi sacred ground. At least I will not object." Yi Qinghan smiled and said, "Thank you, Senior. I will accept the challenge today. Please take care of this child for me. Don't let a thief take her away." Yi Qinghan did not hide anything and directly agreed to the challenge. He was just giving some instructions. When Xia Jiulong heard Yi Qinghan's words, he clenched his 9-dragon fan and took a few steps back. He signaled Gui Shenxi with his eyes and secretly said, "Find a chance to kill him later. Don't worry too much. Saints can't intervene. The Cloud Dragon Sage will arrange everything." Gui Shenxi was stunned. He did not expect Xia Jiulong to not have the confidence to defeat Yi Qinghan. He wanted the two of them to work together and launch a sneak attack. "Okay, as long as you can bear the blame," Gui Shenxi replied calmly. Xia Jiulong smiled confidently. The title of the Holy Master was enough to make the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage compromise. As for the Shi sacred ground, they were not married yet. They would not work together with the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage for Yi Qinghan. The chess saint and saint he looked at Xia Jiulong, Gui Shenxi, and Yi Qinghan seriously. They were the 3 strongest of the younger generation. Only the Dark Walker judge was not here. Yi Qinghan is at a disadvantage. Looking at Xia Jiulong and Gui Shenxi's expressions, it seems like they are going to work together. He can't fight against them. "Saint He, you are the host. Think of a way to stop this battle." The chess saint reminded in a low voice. Xia Hoha frowned and was very anxious. He clenched his fists. He could naturally see that Gui Shenxi and Xia Jiulong were up to no good. Just as Xia Hoa was about to stop them, Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and appeared in the center of the battlefield. His divine robe was cold and his aura was strong. He waved his hand and held it in his hand. He pointed at Xia Jiulong and said, "The number 1 position of the younger generation has changed hands today." Chapter 21-21. Yi Qinghan pointed his long saber in response. Both sides had agreed to fight, and no one could stop them. Xiao He was a step too late. This was a great battle for the number 1 position in the world, a battle of supremes. The world's heroes were shining brightly as they looked into the distance. It seemed even livelier than the heaven worship ceremony. Some people cheered for Yi Qinghan, representing the grassroots. They hoped that they could be like Yi Qinghan, break the shackles, and surpass everything. Of course, more people were loyal to the emperor. They did not want the legend to be broken by a talent from a small domain. The group was getting bigger and bigger. Even the experts of the sacred ground had to take sides. The people of the Kuang sect stood neatly on the side of the Shi sacred ground. They looked calm, but in fact, they were holding divine weapons in both hands, afraid that Yi Qinghan would be attacked. This time, the battlefield was enlarged by hundreds of times. Everything within a radius of 100 miles was the battlefield. Several experts stood guard in all directions to prevent the battle between the two from affecting the innocent. Boom. Yi Qinghan stabbed his saber into the ground and stared at Xia Zhilong. Obviously, he was not going to use his weapon at the beginning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Xia Zhilong shook the nine-dragon fan. His breathing was calm, but the light in his eyes was scorching and crazy. His fingertips trembled slightly, and the nine-dragon fan was hidden in his body. I will fight you fairly. I will not take advantage of you. Today, I will rely on myself to suppress you, Xia Zhilong replied confidently. Yi Qinghan withdrew the eternal glove as a faint smile appeared on his face. His deep and hoarse voice filled the surroundings. Today, one of us will leave lying down. Life or death? Xia Zhilong said coldly with murderous intent. Yi Qinghan looked at Xia Zhilong's murderous face and smiled indifferently. He did not want to kill Xia Zhilong, nor did he want to defeat him completely. Such an enemy was much easier to deal with than an eternal saint. As long as he gave Yunlong Saint a little hope, he would not personally take action, and he would have enough time to step into the eternal saint realm. Then let's begin. Yi Qinghan's eyes shone brightly. He raised his hand slightly and performed the 10-word spell of Tai Chi Immortal Cannon. He controlled the power of heaven and earth, waiting for Xia Zhilong's attack. Xia Zhilong's aura fluctuated. Billions of stars appeared in the sky, and countless stars surrounded his golden body. The power of the stars was dense. He had already cultivated the art of stars to the 33rd form, and his strength had increased by 100-fold. No wonder he was so confident. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes as he looked at Xia Zhilong. He knew that it was impossible for him to win against Xia Zhilong with just the Taiji Immortal Codex. After all, his cultivation of the Taiji Immortal Codex was only half-baked. His strength was far from Xia Zhilong's grand completion level. His aura changed again as he activated his saint technique. A vigorous and ancient aura filled the sky. It was as if a saint had descended to the world. The ancient Xiaohu was augmented by his golden body. The majestic golden body transformed into a god of war, radiating divine light in all directions. The saint's divine ability tore through space and time, and the mystical mysteries condensed into a divine dragon dancing in the air. Yi Qinghan's draconic aura became even stronger and purer than Xia Zhilong's. Yi Qinghan had the bloodline of a heavenly dragon, a direct descendant of the eternal holy dragon. Even though he was still a young dragon, his draconic aura was not weak. What a pure draconic aura! This Yi Qinghan can't be the holy dragon's son, right? Over 20 saints exchanged astonished glances. Even the cloud dragon sage was astonished. The current Yi Qinghan was no longer the same as before. He was definitely not an ant that could be slaughtered by anyone. The cloud dragon sage's killing intent grew even stronger as he thought to himself, this guy must not be left alive. Otherwise, even if I were to make a move personally, I might not be able to kill him, let alone Zhilong. Boom! Just as everyone was feeling astonished, Yi Qinghan and Xia Zhilong crushed the ground at the same time and soared into the sky. Waving their palms, they controlled the world's great Tao and mystical abilities. Their palms collided, and the air currents instantly gushed out over 100 li, smashing into the saint's barrier. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. The duo's speed had already surpassed the limits, and their afterimages could even shatter space. They were just like real people, and their killing prowess was extremely strong. Swoosh 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 swoosh. The two of them leaped into the air, casually gathering air to form blades. The sharpness of their blades was not inferior to superior divine weapons, and in the blink of an eye, they had launched over 1,000 attacks. Everyone's faces turned numb, and goosebumps broke out all over their bodies. Their blood boiled, and they wished they could join in the fight. Boom! The two of them struck out with their elbows, and the absolute saint golden body clashed against the unparalleled dragon physique. The phantom image of a sacred dragon appeared behind them, roaring furiously. Kill! With a furious roar, the two of them went all out. They activated their saint techniques, and they had reached the point of perfection. Their battle cries shook the sky, like 10,000 horses galloping. The sacred dragon robe and the Yin-Yang 8 trigrams Taoist robe were both extremely precious high-grade eternal divine robes, and their defensive prowess was extremely abnormal. However, at this moment, their blood splattered across the sky, and the bones between their thumb and forefinger were shattered. Their bodies were bathed in golden blood. The huge hand that covered the sky suppressed the heavens, cutting off the mountains and rivers. It was even impossible to tell which one was Yi Qinghan and which one was Xia Jiulong. Astral Technique's 33rd move, Astral Convergence, Heaven's Severing Palm. Hua! The stars turned into a huge hand, and 10,000 stars flashed, turning into a blade that cut through the void and slashed toward Yi Qinghan. Wherever it passed, everything was destroyed, and the afterimages turned into nothingness. The saint force crashed into the saint boundary, and the boundary shook. Yi Qinghan stood on the ground with his back facing the ancient city. He put his palms together, crossed them, and pulled them apart in front of his forehead. Mysterious runes shot out from his body. Saint Technique, Heaven and Earth Convergence, all techniques descend. Divine powers appear. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. At this moment, Yi Qinghan used thousands of secret techniques, all of which were saint divine powers. He controlled the power of heaven and earth, and it was as if thousands of Yi Qinghan were suppressing Xia Jiulong at the same time. Each of the clones had terrifying offensive power, and the space-time was distorted as if it would be crushed at any time. Boom, boom, swoosh. Yi Qinghan's powerful attacks crashed into the heaven-severing palm, and they were broken continuously. They could not stop Xia Jiulong's power at all. One attack was broken, two more. After 800 attacks, Yi Qinghan's divine power kept pouring out, and Xia Jiulong's attack was almost worn down. When all of the clones were broken, Xia Jiulong's attack hit the ground, and the city shook. However, it did not hurt Yi Qinghan at all. Whoosh, whoosh. Both of them were breathing rapidly, and neither could do anything to the other. Fan Yin, who was standing in the distance, was more excited and nervous than anyone else. Only she knew how strong Xia Jiulong was. She had never won against him before. She did not expect her junior brother to be able to fight him to a standstill. Bai Shenzi was already gathering his qi, waiting for an opportunity. However, Yi Qinghan still had 50% of his strength, so he did not dare to act rashly. If his first attack failed, there would be no next time. Xia Jiulong did not expect his strongest attack to fail to break through Yi Qinghan's defense. He clenched his fists, and his palms formed another seal. 9 divine dragons coiled around him, and his aura soared. The divine dragons roared, crushing the will of all living beings. At this moment, Yi Qinghan transformed into a divine dragon. Using the divine dragon in his sea of consciousness, he expanded infinitely and broke through the sage's barrier, looking down on all living beings. Ant! He roared as if he did not even put the sage in his eyes. Whoosh! Everyone exclaimed, and they frantically fled. The sage's barrier was no longer effective. Stop! Do you too want to destroy all living beings and become enemies with the world? Xiahou he angrily rebuked. This was his grand audience. If a one-sided massacre happened, he would have nowhere to put his old face. Pull them apart. Cloud Dragon Sage, you take care of the 9 Dragons Crown Prince. Leave Sect Master Yi to me, Xiahou Supreme said in a deep voice. Whoosh, whoosh. The sage personally took action. Drawing the sky as a prison, Xiahou Supreme captured Yi Qinghan alive, suppressing his dragon body, and finally imprisoning him. Cloud Dragon Sage had no choice but to take action to suppress Xia Jiulong. Some of the lower realm cultivators were so scared that they wet their pants. The two's auras were too strong, just like sages. Once they started fighting, these lower and middle realm cultivators would definitely become cannon fodder. The world fell into a dead silence, afraid that the two sages would not be able to suppress these two monsters. Yi Qinghan struggled for a moment. He was ultimately not a sage. Xiahou Supreme's will was comparable to the heavens, and he could not go against it. Chapter 21-22. Xia Jiulong was unwilling to give up, but the Cloud Dragon Sage had already made his move. Even if he wanted to resist, he could only retract his aura. The Cloud Dragon Sage glanced at him coldly, then stared at Yi Qinghan. He said hoarsely, I didn't expect you to be a descendant of the divine dragon. You're no different from us humans. Xiahou Jizun also released him. Yi Qinghan exhaled and replied calmly, Cloud Dragon Sage, what do you mean? Are you saying that the 9 dragons crown prince can transform into a divine dragon, but I can't? If I do, I'm no longer a human? The Cloud Dragon Sage replied indifferently, You can transform, but I'm not so stupid that I can't tell the difference. You clearly transformed into your original body. I can guarantee that the divine dragon is your original body. You're not from this small domain, but a remnant of the coiling dragon realm, the descendant of the divine dragon. Just one sentence was enough to sentence Yi Qinghan to death. Yi Qinghan sneered in disdain. So what if you're a sage? In this day and age, you can still suppress others with your status. You can go and ask the Heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage if I'm the holy dragon of the coiling dragon realm. Don't think that you can spout nonsense just because you're a sage. I can't beat you in terms of strength, but I can convince you in terms of logic, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, neither servile nor overbearing. In this world, who would dare to talk to a sage alone with such an attitude? Xia Jiolong was strong enough, and Gui Shenxi was arrogant enough, but they definitely wouldn't dare to talk back to a sage alone. The Cloud Dragon Sage couldn't directly kill Yi Qinghan. The Grandmaster Grand Sage alone was enough to tie him down. If he killed Yi Qinghan without reason, the Grandmaster Grand Sage could play him to death. The Cloud Dragon Sage looked at the other Eternal Sages, but none of them sided with him. They didn't help either side. Some deliberately talked to Xiahou He and chose to ignore them. Yi Qinghan snorted, unwilling to speak with the Cloud Dragon Sage. However, his sacred dragon bloodline was indeed suspicious. After all, there was an eternal sacred dragon bloodline hidden in his sea of consciousness. Xia Jiolong was indignant. He had wanted to use his immortal sealing imprint to directly touch Yi Qinghan, but he had broken the sage's enchantment in the early stages of the battle. The sage had no choice but to intervene, so this battle could not continue. Yi Qinghan, I'll spare your life today for the sake of the sage. The next time we meet, I'll definitely kill you, Xia Jiolong said coldly. Gui Shenxi said coldly, That's what I wanted to say as well. 100 years later, my godly ancestor will come out of seclusion and announce to the world. Let's see if you dare to come. 100 years was neither long nor short. For many people, 100 years would pass in the blink of an eye. However, for Yi Qinghan, who was racing against time, 100 years was enough for him to stabilize his position in the upper level. He could even reach the middle or peak of the upper level. His cultivation was not comparable to a sage's, but he could easily kill anyone below the sage's level. 100 years. I'll accept the challenge, but the location will not be at the grand ceremony of the great sage. It will be in the snowfield of Beijiang. If you're interested, you can come. Of course, you can join forces with the 9 dragons crown prince, Yi Qinghan said lightly. Strong enough. No one laughed at Yi Qinghan for bragging. Who could fight with Xia Jiolong to this extent? Only Yi Qinghan. Xia Jiolong's face was calm, but his heart was raging with murderous intent. Ever since Yi Qinghan appeared in the outside world, he had fought with Xia Jiolong no less than 5 times. However, Xia Jiolong had never gained an advantage. Today, he had even lost face. How could Xia Jiolong not be angry? Beijiang's snowfield, Jade Snow Peak. 100 years later, I'll wait for you there. I don't need anyone to interfere. Only one of us can walk out of Jade Snow Peak. The other will be buried in Jade Snow Peak, Xia Jiolong said coldly. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and turned to leave. The wounds on his body quickly healed and his Taoist robe returned to normal. His aura was restrained. Although the Taoist robe was ugly, it was very useful. The Taoist robe quickly disappeared. Yi Qinghan's robe was as white as snow. His strong and handsome face was enough to drive all the female cultivators crazy. Fanning pouted and snorted, arrogant. Show off. Woo-woo. The heroes of the world cheered and the female cultivators screamed. They had become Yi Qinghan's most fervent fans. Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing stood beside Wu Zhenjuan with smiles on their faces. They were filled with happiness and adoration. They were not worried because Yi Qinghan had become strong. This feeling would not change even if the world changed. Wu Zhenjuan's white hair fluttered in the wind. He glanced at his two daughters and sighed. He was a saint and could not see through Yi Qinghan's life trajectory. However, he could still see the life trajectories of his two daughters. Their lives should not have appeared in this world. Even if they did, there would still be a great calamity in their lives. If they could not avoid it, their souls would be destroyed forever. Even a saint like him could not save them. The two of you, stay away from Yi Qinghan. His cultivation has not reached the great saint realm. He has no right to marry my daughters. You can't even see them. Wu Zhenjuan said coldly. Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing were shocked. They did not think that Wu Zhenjuan's attitude would change so quickly. Your calamity is getting closer and closer. You are close to death. If you want to live, leave him. This is the only way. Wu Zhenjuan said indifferently. He did not give the two any room for discussion. Finally, he said firmly, there is no room for discussion. I am your father. I don't care about your past lives. In this life, you are my daughters. I will protect you. Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing's expressions changed. They could feel Wu Zhenjuan's fatherly love. They did not want to make things difficult for him. They nodded and said in unison, we will listen to father. I believe that he can reach the great saint realm. If you die because of Yi Qinghan, then you'll truly die and lose him forever. Even if he cultivates to the great sage realm, he won't be able to change anything. Instead, he'll feel even more despair. As for him, if his destiny is good enough, he can reach the peak even without you two. Your feelings are there, and they won't change. For him, for you too, go back and cultivate in peace. Until you reach the saint realm, you're not allowed to come out. Emperor Yi smiled bitterly. It seemed that Wu Zhenjuan had made up his mind. He did not want to be entangled with this matter. He did not want to lose this fatherly love. Emperor Yi and Yi Qinghan looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with reluctance to part, and all the words they wanted to say were contained in their gaze. Yi Qinghan understood what he was thinking. He nodded at Emperor Yi and transmitted his voice to him, saying, you don't have to go against his wishes. I will provide you with celestial pills that will allow you to advance to the saint plane. Cultivate in peace and don't worry about anything. Emperor Yi pursed his lips and nodded seriously. Wu Zhenjuan was close to Emperor Yi and could definitely intercept Yi Qinghan's message. Hearing Yi Qinghan's words, he nodded with satisfaction. Chapter 21-23. The experts from all sides quickly dispersed. Only the chess saint was still waiting. Yi Qinghan hurriedly said to Gu Qingyu and the others, follow the chess saint back. After returning, immediately go into seclusion to comprehend the blessings of heaven. Don't come out unless something major happens. But Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and the others cupped their fists and said. The chess saint nodded to Yi Qinghan and secretly transmitted his voice. Be careful. There is no turning back for you and the Holy Empire. I can't help you much. You can only rely on yourself. Yi Qinghan smiled slightly and did not reply. He just bowed and thanked him. Soon, the chess saint took everyone from the insane sect away. When the Cloud Dragon Sage saw Yi Qinghan and the eternal saint of the Oshi Sacred Ground gathering, he knew that there was no chance, so he returned to the Holy Empire with Xia Jiolong. Gue Shensi left with the experts of the Guishan clan. Xiahou ancient city quickly quieted down. Xiahou he looked at Yi Qinghan gratefully and said with a wry smile, I'm really sorry. It was this old man who caused you to offend two young sovereigns at the same time. Yi Qinghan shrugged indifferently and replied, you're too polite, sage he. This matter has nothing to do with you. Even if it wasn't for you, I would have taken action today. After all, Fan Yin is my senior sister. Kid, you still have some conscience. I thought you would hide and watch the show. Fan Yin reprimanded in a bad mood. Yi Qinghan smiled slightly and said faintly, how can that be? How can I bear to let such a beautiful senior sister be defiled by a bastard? Fan Yin snorted and said, you're so poor. If Gue Shensi really gets the great sage's decree to kill you this time, even the saints can't protect you. I'd better go back and ask the old man to get you a protective talisman. After saying that, Fan Yin turned and left with a smile on her face. Yi Qinghan smiled as he watched her leave under the protection of the three deans. Then he bowed to Xiahou He and Xiahou Jizun and left with the Eternal Saint of the Oshi Holy Land. The Eternal Saint personally took action. He led Yarsheng, Fanning, and Yi Qinghan into the void. Their speed was much faster than Yi Qinghan's forbidden technique. It would take a peak Eternal Saint a year to travel from the Xiahou Sacred Land to the edge of the Oshi Sacred Land, traversing countless powerful sects and sacred lands. The Holy Land of Oshi was vast and boundless, but it was rather lacking in resources. Most of it was barren mountain ranges, but it was too big, so big that it was comparable to the territory of 2 or 3 holy empires. It was precisely because there was a large area of barren mortal land here that the Holy Empire had not made a move for a long time, and the Holy Land of Oshi could stand proudly to this day. The Eternal Saint of the Oshi Holy Land took the 3 of them and rushed to the Oshi Holy Land for a year before stopping. Saints also needed to rest. Let's take a walk and see the territory of the Oshi Holy Land. It's also a good opportunity for you to see the local customs of the Oshi Holy Land. The middle-aged saint said in a deep voice. The 4 of them chatted along the way. Yi Qinghan learned that this saint was Yarsheng's 6th-generation grandfather. He was known as the Saint of Light. He controlled the light element and was especially good at controlling time and space. The Oshi Holy Land had 4 eternal saints and 1 absolute saint. Among them, the 4 eternal saints inherited the absolute saint's 4 great holy techniques, namely light, love, life, and power. The most powerful one was the Saint of Power, but the most terrifying one was the Goddess of Love. This person could control the souls of all living beings. As long as they looked into her eyes, she could make the eternal saint self-destruct. However, she had never used the highest level of this holy technique because it was at the cost of her life origin. The 4 eternal saints were the direct descendants of the absolute saint. They didn't have a good relationship, but once there was an invasion from outside, they would definitely unite against it. Yi Qinghan had a general understanding of the Oshi Holy Land, but if he wanted Lin Wutian to successfully marry Yarsheng, he still needed to have a systematic understanding of the Oshi Holy Land. He needed to thoroughly understand the customs of the Oshi Holy Land. Otherwise, let alone seeing the Absolute Saint, it would be good enough if he could enter the Absolute Saint city of the Oshi Holy Land. Everywhere they went, Yarsheng would explain the customs of the place and how the love between men and women was tested. Lin Wutian and Yi Qinghan listened to her explanation tirelessly. Everywhere they went, they would gain more knowledge. However, there were many places in the Oshi Holy Land where the resources were not even as good as the small domain world. Mortals could be seen everywhere. When they saw the cultivators, their eyes were full of awe and yearning. Time flew by like a shuttle, as fast as flowing water. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. The 4 of them walked through about 100 cities and crossed the distance of about 2 ordinary holy lands. Finally, they entered the bustling world of cultivators. Their cultivation methods were different from those of the East. The East mainly cultivated the soul and the physical body, while the Oshi Holy Land mainly cultivated the mind. However, they were different methods to achieve the same result. In the end, what they comprehended was always the great path and the law. It was hard to say who was more advanced, but in the early stage of cultivation, the Eastern cultivators were always stronger. This is the territory of the Goddess of Love. I will take you to visit her first and make arrangements in advance. If she can agree to let the Holy Land's Imperial Saintess marry to the East, this matter will be half successful. If she doesn't agree, your matter will basically be impossible. The Saint of Light said with certainty, marrying an Emperor's Saintess is a very important matter. Throughout the generations, the Emperor's Saintesses have never been married to the East. This seems to be a custom and a promise. This is your first time, so I can't give you a definite answer. Your saint also looked nervous. The Imperial Saintess had her own choice when marrying, but before, she had chosen the young masters of the Oshi Holy Land. But now, she had chosen an Eastern cultivator, and not someone from a top holy land. She did not have much confidence. She could only ask for the support of the 4 saints. When the time came, the Holy Emperor would also reconsider. Lin Wutian held the divine sword and took a deep breath. For this marriage, it was not only his business, but also the business of the Guangzong. As long as the marriage was successful, the Guangzong could be considered to have successfully stood firm in the big world. If it failed, the Guangzong would be in danger. Yi Qinghan was very calm. In his opinion, there was nothing in the world that could not be driven by interests. Even if there were, with endless resources as the price, it was enough to break all pressure. The Saint of Light reminded the three of them and took them into the void. A month later, they entered a vast city. The spiritual qi here was very active, and the elements were much purer than those in the east. The west cultivated the elements, while the east cultivated the spiritual qi. Therefore, the ratio of elements and spiritual qi contained in the air between the two places was very different. This city is called the Holy City of Love. Here, meaningless killing is strictly prohibited. If you want to kill, you must apply for official approval under open circumstances. You must fight one-on-one, which is a duel. The goddess of love may let you fight a few rounds to test your strength and temperament. You must seize this opportunity. If you miss this opportunity, it will be difficult in the future, the Saint of Light continued to remind them. Thank you, Senior. Lin Wutian thanked him respectfully. The Saint of Light glanced at Lin Wutian, then looked at Yi Qinghan and smiled. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. You are the enemy of the Holy Land, so you are the friends of the Oshi Holy Land. Moreover, I have seen the strength of the two of you. I am more optimistic about the two of you, so I am willing to help you. Chapter 21-24. The Holy City of Love was particularly harmonious, and the aura of love was everywhere. Although there was no lack of battles, they were all fair one-on-one duels. In the Holy City of Love, female cultivators were supreme, and men were just accessories. Powerful female cultivators could be seen everywhere with many followers behind them. Yi Qinghan and the others quickly followed the Saint of Light into the city. Their auras were restrained, but their eastern appearance still attracted many people's attention, especially some women. Their eyes suddenly lit up as they stared at Yi Qinghan and Lin Wutian. However, Yarsheng was a member of the royal family, and her eyes were a symbol, so no one dared to act recklessly. It seemed that no one knew Yarsheng and the Saint of Light. Both of them were extremely low-key. In the blink of an eye, they entered the center of the city with Yi Qinghan and went straight to the Saintess mansion. The goddess of love was the 3rd-generation Saintess, and Yarsheng was the 18th-generation Saintess. The goddess of love's level was much higher than Yarsheng's. Even Yarsheng had to be respectful here. The gate of the Saintess mansion was majestic and solemn. 2 giant tigers guarded the gate. At first glance, they thought they were statues, but when they got closer, they realized that they were actually alive. The lightning tiger was a mutated beast that wielded the power of lightning. It was a high-tier saint beast, and it had already cultivated to upper saint realm. Lightning crackled in its eyes, and as soon as it saw the 4 of them approaching, it stood up. It was around 8 meters tall, and it had a muscular body, thick limbs, and sharp white fangs. A deep roar reverberated through the air, causing the 4 people's hair to flutter in the wind. The Saint of Light exuded the pressure of a saint, and the light element bathed the 2 thunder tigers. He frowned and whispered, "The Saint of Light has brought 3 children to visit the Saintess of Love. I hope that the Saintess will come out and meet us." The low voice condensed into a line, and in the blink of an eye, it rushed into the depths of the Saintess mansion. At this moment, Yarsheng was excited. She had only seen the goddess of love once. She was a woman that made all men go crazy. She represented love and beauty, and was supreme. She was single and unmarried. The younger generation did not know why, but the 4 saints of the Oshi sacred land knew, so the relationship between the 4 was very bad. Yarsheng also knew that the 4 saints' relationship was very bad, so she was not sure if the goddess of love would meet her, Lin Wutian, and Yi Qinghan today. The thunder tiger didn't make way for them, which meant that the Saintess of Love hadn't made her stand yet. The Saint of Light's face was gloomy. Regret and helplessness appeared on his vigorous face. The sadness in his eyes could not be dispelled. Back then we were wrong. Now that the scene has reappeared, I don't want to repeat the same mistake. Give me another chance. The Saint of Light transmitted his voice again, but this time, other than himself, only the Saintess of Love could hear it. Scram! A cold voice rushed from the mansion into the sea of consciousness of the Saint of Light. The Saint of Light's body trembled, and his body involuntarily took a step back. A sense of sadness and regret arose spontaneously. When Yi Qinghan saw this, he knew that the Saint of Light and the Goddess of Love had a grudge, and it involved feelings. He thought to himself, I'm afraid I won't be able to see her today. Yar Saint did not know the truth and could only look at the Saint of Light for help. Sigh. Let's go. The Saint of Light sighed and turned to leave. In an instant, his back was filled with desolation and sorrow. Yar Saint did not dare to ask more, and Yi Qinghan did not dare to ask more. He could only follow the Saint of Light and leave. The Saintess mansion was dead silent. Only the maids were walking around. The environment was beautiful, and the decorations were more oriental. Flowers flew and butterflies danced, and it was magnificent. There was no trace of the Goddess of Love. The Saint of Light did not lead the three of them directly out of the holy city of love. Instead, they entered a restaurant. The four of them asked for a private room and had a simple meal. Then they all fell silent. The Saint of Light looked apologetic and said helplessly, I can't help you. The Goddess of Love has not appeared for many years. Other than the Emperor Ancestor, she will not see anyone. Shouldn't you be family? You are connected by blood. Why do I feel like there is a grudge between you two? Yi Qinghan could not suppress his curiosity and finally asked. When it came to grudges, the Saint of Light was even more annoyed and helpless. He lowered his head and remained silent for a long time. Yar Saint also did not know why the four saints of the Holy Land would not see each other. They were very prejudiced against each other. However, she did not dare to ask because she had asked the Emperor Ancestor once. The Emperor Ancestor was angry at her for the first time. Since then, this matter had been a mystery that no one could unravel. After a long time, the Saint of Light held his head and said regretfully, What happened back then, I can't say who was right or wrong. However, from the perspective of the Saintess of Love, we were wrong. She only fell in love once in her life. Moreover, the other party was not from the Oshi Holy Land. He was not even from the Eternal World. He was the Crown Prince of the Daluo Star Realm, the 9-Star Saint. Back then, when the Holy Empire attacked the Daluo Star Realm, the 9-Star Saint asked for help from the Oshi Holy Land. Yar Saint sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder the Goddess of Love was still unwilling to come out. She was even cold to the Emperor Ancestor. At the mention of the 9-Star Saint, Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He quickly asked, The 9-Star Saint. Is there a 9-star alignment under his feet? The Saint of Light frowned and shook his head. I don't know. This is a private matter. However, the 9-Star Saint was infinitely close to becoming a saint at a very young age. He is also the only one who has remained undefeated against a saint when he was at the Great Circle of the upper level. This is a legend, a record that no one has broken until now. No wonder the old woman of the third generation cares so much about him. He is so outstanding. Yar Saint murmured. The Saint of Light sighed. Yes, he is very outstanding. Back then, the Emperor Ancestor was also willing to help the Daluo astral realm and even wanted to form a marriage alliance. However, the Sky-Reaching Church stood on the side of the Holy Empire. The Sky-Reaching Church personally informed the Emperor Ancestor that as long as the Oshi sacred ground attacked the Holy Empire, the Sky-Reaching Church would definitely not sit idly by. Therefore, the Emperor Ancestor asked us to vote. The three of us opposed, so he hesitated. However, he did not consider that the Holy Empire was too powerful. In just a few months when the Emperor Ancestor hesitated, the Holy Emperor of the Holy Empire joined forces with the 9 saints to suppress the Daluo astral realm's emperor and destroy everything. The 9-Star Saint's life was never found. No wonder, Yi Qinghan clenched his fist. The Oshi sacred ground was unique in that the relationship between the saints of the Holy Lands was so bad. Is the person in the sealed sky prison stepping on the stars the 9-Star Saint? Yi Qinghan was not sure. Lin Shui did not give him a definite answer. Lin Jun also did not know. After all, Lin Shui was still too young at that time. 9-star saint? Yi Qinghan frowned and asked in a deep voice, back then, why was the crown prince called the 9-star saint? The saint of light thought for a moment and said, his name is Lin Jiuxing. It doesn't seem to have any special meaning. Hua! Yi Qinghan stood up and said firmly, I am going to see the goddess of love. I must find out who the existence in the sealed sky prison is. After speaking, Yi Qinghan rushed out of the restaurant alone and went straight to the saintess' residence. If you still don't know, the star chessboard should know, right? Yi Qinghan was unwilling to give up, so he spoke again. In a split second, Yi Qinghan felt his throat being choked by a pair of hands as he was lifted off the ground. The invisible hand did not even give him a chance to resist. Yi Qinghan's holy golden body struggled madly, but to no avail. Even his feet were pulled off the ground, and his face turned red. Senior, we have no intention of blasphemy. At this moment, even Lin Wutian knelt down in shock. He did not expect the strength of a saint to be so exaggerated. She could choke Yi Qinghan to death with just a thought. Grandmother, you are a symbol of love. You can understand my feelings. Please give me a chance. Just a little chat. If I can't change your mind, we won't disturb you anymore, Yarsheng said anxiously. Yi Qinghan's throat was almost severed by the invisible hand. The terrifying willpower was about to destroy his soul and physical body. However, his physical body was indeed terrifying. His hand slowly pried open the void hand, but he was still unable to completely break free. Senior, the person I was talking about is still alive. You gave me a chance to meet him. I will not let you down, Yi Qinghan gasped for breath and said hoarsely. The three figures at the door lost control and were directly dragged into the saintess's residence by an invisible hand. In a courtyard near a mountain and a river, the spiritual energy in the surroundings was dense. A woman about 1.75 meters tall with blonde hair draped over her shoulders, wearing a long black dress. Just by looking at her back, one could tell that she was the most beautiful woman in the world. It made one's heart beat faster involuntarily. This person waved her hand and controlled the great Tao of the heavens. She gently pinched her jade-like hand, and a small flower appeared in her hand. Yi Qinghan and the other two appeared in the courtyard. Yi Qinghan sucked in a breath of cold air. He did not expect the goddess of love to be so much more powerful than the chess saint and Xiahou Jizun. She was probably even more terrifying than Xiahou He, who was blessed by the heavens. You better not joke with me about this. Otherwise, you are dead, even if you are the disciple of the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage. The woman did not turn her head. Her voice was like the sound of nature, but it was filled with killing intent and coldness. It made one's hair stand on end. Yi Qinghan felt as if his spine was being pierced by needles. The pain penetrated into his bone marrow, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. This goddess of love was too scary. I'm speaking the truth. I saw a person stepping on stars in the heaven-sealing prison of the Holy Empire. He was chained up and I could not see his strength. But at the very least, his cultivation should be close to that of a saint. He was very young and I cannot describe his appearance. Because I have too little time, I could not communicate with him. But I saw clearly that there were 9 stars under his feet, just like the stars. Yi Qinghan hurriedly said. The goddess of love turned her head. Her face was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. In an instant, peerless beauties like Yar Saint and Fanine could not be compared to her. The goddess of love's eyes and blonde hair were similar to Yar Saint's, but her aura was like that of a fairy. This aura was seen on the Green Lotus Sword Fairy, and no one dared to blaspheme it. Yi Qinghan and Lin Wutian did not dare to look her in the eyes, and quickly lowered their heads. This pair of eyes had an additional ability compared to Yar Saint's, and that was the ability to control all living things. It could make a saint self-destruct. A saint could not kill a saint, but it could kill himself. This was another person with extraordinary talent after the Green Lotus Sword Fairy. It was even more frightening than a great saint. The golden eyes seemed to have an endless black hole vortex that could devour everything. What does what you said have to do with me? What does it have to do with the star chessboard? The goddess of love was as cold as ice as she asked indifferently. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked, I just want to know if this person is the crown prince of the Daluo star realm, the 9-star saint. The goddess of love shook her head and replied, I don't know. Based on your description, I can't be sure. After all, the 9-star saint and I are only soul friends. We have never had any physical contact, so I don't know if there is a 9-star alignment under his feet. The goddess of love was still a virgin. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He did not expect this woman to be so infatuated. They were only soul friends, and she could not forget them for countless years. What's the star chessboard about? The goddess of love stared at Yi Qinghan and asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan did not hide anything and said directly, there was an orphaned princess of the Daluo star realm who appeared in the eastern desolate realm with the star chessboard. I accidentally saved her. She was too young and seemed to have been sealed. She knows nothing about what happened back then, so I can't be sure who the person in the sealed sky prison is. Huff huff huff. A glimmer of light and hope appeared in the goddess of love's eyes. After all, she had never seen the corpse of the 9-star saint, so she could not be sure if he was dead. However, the Holy Empire was too powerful, and even the great sage was suppressed. She naturally thought that he was dead. Yi Qinghan's words once again ignited her fighting spirit. The goddess of love stared at Yi Qinghan and said firmly, help me find out. I will support your request. Chapter 21-26. The goddess of love stared at Yi Qinghan. There was finally some emotion in her eyes, but it made Yi Qinghan feel even more pressured. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. I can't enter the heaven-sealing prison again. I'm afraid that if I'm caught, I won't have the chance to appear again. The goddess of love did not care. She only said coldly, think of your own way. There is nothing in this world that is impossible. I'll give you time. I'll support your matter first. That's my sincerity. Yi Qinghan rubbed his head. Sure enough, beautiful women weren't easy to deal with. For example, Bailey Chenxiang, Green Lotus Sword Immortal, and the woman in front of him. Once they decided on something, there was no room for objection. Going to the heaven-sealing prison is gambling with your life. If you lose, you die. If you win, you may not survive. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. But when he thought about it carefully, hadn't everything he obtained been exchanged with his life? However, Lin Wutian was not willing to let Yi Qinghan exchange his life for his marriage. He shook his head and said, even if you don't support my marriage with Yar, I won't let my master exchange his life for mine. It's not up to you to decide. Help me now and you may live. If you don't help me now, I can send you to your deaths. No one can save you. The goddess of love flashed coldly. She did not look loving at all. She was clearly a demon. Yi Qinghan was speechless. He could only smile bitterly and say, I'll think of another way. I promise to help you find out the identity of that person. In fact, I also want to find out the identity of that person. That's why I came to see you. But the goddess of love nodded calmly. Then she looked at Lin Wutian and Yar Sheng. A talented man and a beautiful woman. You are a good match. I saw your courage just now. You dared to go against the will of the saint for your master. You are a sentimental person. However, the husband of the Emperor's Saintess is not only about love and courage. It also depends on your wisdom, strength, talent, and opportunity. Although the goddess of love was only about 1.75 meters tall, she looked like she was looking down on all living things. Yi Qinghan and Lin Wutian were always a head shorter than her. Lin Wutian's will was strong, but at this moment, he couldn't refute. This woman's temperament and aura were only slightly weaker than Green Lotus Sword Fairies. This difference was huge for a saint, but for Lin Wutian, who was in the upper realm, it didn't make any difference. Based on the saint's assessment alone, Lin Wutian said with a bow. The goddess of love looked at Lin Wutian, raised 4 fingers, and said, if you fail one of the 4 tests, I can't convince myself to support you. Strength, wisdom, talent, and opportunity? Lin Wutian asked curiously. The goddess of love nodded and said, the first test is strength. I will give you 2 years to defeat all the top 30 masters in my territory in the past million years. This is the name list of the 30 people that I approve of, not the 30 people who have a reputation in the underworld. Whoosh! The goddess of love waved her hand, and a rune appeared in Lin Wutian's mind. It was engraved with the names and locations of the 30 masters. Every one of them was described clearly. Before Lin Wutian could take a closer look, the goddess of love said, "The second test is wisdom. There is a maze here. If you can walk out of it in 3 months, you will pass the test. The third test is luck. There is a small secret realm in my territory. There is a piece of my experience in that secret realm. It has been hidden in the depths of the secret realm for countless years, and no one has found it yet. If you can find it within a year, you will pass the third test. The fourth test is talent. Once you have obtained my experience, I will give you another 10 years to comprehend it to the small success realm." The 4 tests weren't difficult, but they were difficult in terms of time. Each test only gave a short period of time, so it was no wonder that no one had passed the test until now. "No one can help you." "Yeah? Yi Qinghan, you two stay in the mansion. Your time starts now. Pass the test within 14 years and reach here." "You will pass," the goddess of love said coldly. Yi Qinghan shrugged and patted Lin Wutian's shoulder. He said, "You can only rely on yourself for this. I can't help you much, but I will give you a little spiritual pet. I hope it will be useful." After saying this, Yi Qinghan forced the little divine bird out of his bloodline. The little divine bird looked at Yi Qinghan with an aggrieved expression and said, "If there's anything, go find my father. Why are you looking for me?" Yi Qinghan pinched the divine feather on the little divine bird's forehead and said calmly, "I will give you to my disciple. Stay by his side. If you dare to cause trouble, I will pluck all your feathers." But the little divine bird was so scared that its wings exploded. It glared at Yi Qinghan and almost cursed it out loud. Without waiting for the little divine bird to curse, Yi Qinghan pinched its little claw and dripped a drop of blood on Lin Wutian's forehead. A master-servant contract was automatically formed. "Fuck you. If you want to give someone else a favor, then give my father to someone else. Why give it to me? I have nothing to do with you." The little divine bird finally couldn't take it anymore. It hugged its little claw and sucked on it, afraid that it would waste a drop of blood. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. This little bastard seemed to be even more difficult to deal with than the big bastard. Looking at its resentful face, he couldn't help but rub his hands and say, "Do you believe that I will give your mother away and make you an orphan?" Suddenly, the little divine bird became obedient and said to Lin Wutian, "Let's go. I am too lazy to argue with an idiot." Lin Wutian was speechless, but Yi was amused and laughed. The goddess of love looked at the little divine bird with interest. She didn't expect there to be such a spiritual pet in the world. Lin Wutian looked at Yi Qinghan's face and didn't dare to let the little divine bird provoke Yi Qinghan again. He hurriedly took the little divine bird and left the saintess mansion. Yi looked at Lin Wutian's back and asked worriedly, "Grandmother, if those old monsters in your territory attack him, won't Wutian be in danger?" The goddess of love replied indifferently, "This is also within the scope of the comprehensive assessment of luck, strength, and wisdom. If he can't protect himself, how can he protect you in the future?" When Yi Qinghan heard this, he shook his head and sighed. Beautiful women really can't be provoked. What kind of assessment is this? It's clearly a matter of life and death. The goddess of love coldly glanced at Yi Qinghan and waved her hand. "Go out. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important. Your range of activity is 3,000 miles around the holy city of love. If you dare to leave to help Lin Wutian, our agreement ends here." Smiled bitterly and said respectfully, "Yes, we will follow your orders." Yi Qinghan and Yi shook their heads and were about to leave when the goddess of love suddenly said, "Make that bastard leave the holy city of love. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." The bastard was naturally referring to the light saint. Back then, the light saint had voted against the goddess of love because he admired her. Who would have thought that love would turn into hatred? One mistake would cause everlasting regret. Even now, they couldn't even be considered friends. Chapter 21-27. The goddess of love's words made the light sage leave with his tail between his legs. Yi Qinghan was bored to death as he strolled around the holy city of love. Occasionally, he would buy a few books on Western cultivation methods to study. There was a fundamental difference between the cultivation methods of Western and Eastern cultivators. It was very simple. Eastern cultivation methods were much more complicated. Just like that, he strolled around for a month. Yi Qinghan used Western cultivation methods to cultivate all the way to the Sector Lord realm without any pressure. However, if he wanted to cultivate to the upper realm, he would need a powerful mental force. The cultivation methods would also become more difficult to understand. Since he was bored, Yi Qinghan began to focus on mental force. The power of mental force was very mysterious and very useful. Previously, when the goddess of love had strangled him, she had used mental force. Even from such a far distance, he couldn't resist. One could see how powerful it was. 2 months later, a shocking news came from the holy city of love. An Eastern cultivator fought continuously for 60 days. On average, he crossed a city every 3 days and defeated a peak upper realm expert. He didn't even rest. In just 2 months, 20 peak experts were suppressed. This news caused a huge commotion in the holy city of love. Countless experts were tempted. They wanted to defeat this Eastern expert and become famous in one fell swoop. They wanted to attract the attention of the saints and become like carps jumping through the dragon gate. Lin Wutian's route was clear. Those who were familiar with the holy city of love knew where his next destination was. Xiu, 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 Xiu. All the experts rushed to Tell City. They wanted to see if Lin Wutian could defeat the eldest son of Tell City, Grand Duke Tui. Although Tui was from the younger generation, his strength had already surpassed his father. He had achieved the title of Grand Duke. The next step would be the title of Grand Emperor. This was a top-notch title. Only emperors and saints could receive it. Currently, there were only 5 Grand Emperors. One of them wasn't a saint, but his strength was only second to a saint. In Tell City, the City Lord's mansion. The City Lord, Tell You, looked at Grand Duke Tui with a solemn expression. Tui looked like he had just entered middle age. His eyes were vigorous and his aura was restrained. He had a strong and powerful body that was 1 size bigger than the Eastern people. His eyes moved, and his mental force overflowed. He was definitely not someone ordinary experts could compare to. Tui, this matter is no small matter. If you lose, your reputation will be ruined. In front of the goddess of love, your position will also be affected. Tell You reminded him. Tui clenched his fists and slowly stood up. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. After he finished speaking, Tell You stretched out his hand to grab the heaven's thunder hammer. The ground was instantly cracked by him, and the air blasted into the galaxy. Lightning flashed all around, and the thunder grew thicker. Dark clouds covered space. Bolts of lightning swept across the mountains and rivers like dragons. In an instant, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning appeared at the same time. All the masters in Tell You City were alarmed. The golden-haired, blue-eyed Tell You was full of fighting spirit. He held the heaven's thunder hammer in his hand and stepped on the mountains and rivers. His golden hair danced in the wind. He quickly stepped out of the city lord's residence and went straight to the city gate. Lin Wutian's eyes were like torches. Compared to Tell You, he was much more delicate. He looked at the lightning and dark clouds in the sky, and a rolling pressure spread out of the city. He knew that Tell You had accepted the challenge, so he didn't enter the city. Instead, he stood at the city gate with the divine sword. Many masters gathered at the city gate, and they all looked at Lin Wutian curiously. Some of them were full of fighting spirit and looked at him angrily. It was as if Lin Wutian was declaring war on the whole West. The glory of their race made them angry. However, this group of people had cultivated to the upper level, so they weren't stupid. They were all waiting for Tell You to appear. Whether he won or lost, at least they had a rough understanding of Lin Wutian's strength. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder and lightning flashed in the sky, and it was raining heavily. A layer of light appeared around Lin Wutian, and the rain couldn't get close to him. Crack, crack, crack. A bolt of lightning tore through the dark clouds. A strong figure holding the heaven's thunder hammer walked to the city gate. They looked at each other, and their fighting spirit soared. Lin Wutian's eyes were full of vigor. He looked at Tell Yu and knew that this person was a strong opponent. His heaven's thunder hammer alone wasn't something that ordinary people could resist. Eternal divine weapon? Lin Wutian frowned. With his strength, he couldn't use the Green Lotus sword song. How could he resist Tell Yu's heaven's thunder hammer? Chapter 21-28. An eternal divine weapon. The Sky Thunder Hammer was definitely an eternal divine weapon. It was as heavy as a star, but it was connected to Turvi's bloodline. It was not that heavy when he held it, but it was different when he smashed it on the enemy. Moreover, it had the power of pure thunder and lightning. Turvi was not an upper-level cultivator. Boom! Turvi stepped out of the ancient Turvi city. His face was slightly red, and he was a little embarrassed. He had bullied a junior like this. Even if he won, it would be an unfair victory, but he had no other choice. Lin Wutian held the divine sword. His delicate body and calm face made him look even more handsome. Even if the West's aesthetic standards were different from the East's, he still stood out among the crowd. They looked at each other, and their fighting spirit soared. Even in the face of an eternal divine weapon, Lin Wutian was not afraid at all. Go to the Wuji Mountain. There are no creatures there, so we can fight freely. Turvi's voice was like a bell, mighty and mighty. Lin Wutian said, "Lead the way." Boom! Turvi stepped on the ground and pulled lightning. Thunder surrounded his golden body as he rushed into the distance. Whoosh! Lin Wutian's figure flashed and appeared beside him. He looked calm as he stepped on the wind and clouds, and the broken leaves turned into divine weapons and pierced through the rocks. Whoosh! The masters gathered outside the city all rushed over, but they were very far away, for fear of being hit by the Sky Thunder Hammer in Turvi's hand. Whoosh! Whoosh! This battle attracted at least 100 upper-level masters. Almost half of the masters in the Holy Land of Love were gathered there. They were all young warriors, and their cultivation was not bad. The Everlasting Mountain was lacking in resources. It was a barren mountain range with very little wild grass. There were quite a few thorns with thorns, but they had no value at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! Turvi and Lin Wutian occupied two mountains at the same time, more than 100 meters apart. Lin Wutian of the Eastern Wild Sect. "Please enlighten me," Lin Wutian said with a fist salute. Turvi held the 3-meter-long Sky Thunder Hammer. His aura flowed, and thunder surrounded him. Lightning from the primitive world hung vertically upside down, dense and dense. The surrounding thunder elements had already covered the mountains and rivers. It was terrifying. "Turvi, the Grand Duke of Oshi. I hold the ancestral Sky Thunder Hammer. Boy, admit defeat and I will spare your life," Turvi said in a deep voice. Whoosh! Lin Wutian pushed the hilt of his sword with his thumb, and the sword whistled through the sky. Cyan light covered 100 miles, and the field of the way of the sword rushed out of his body, trying to isolate the lightning elements. The aura of the two sides clashed with each other. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lin Wutian's swordsmanship had overwhelmed all the upper plane cultivators. Even the upper plane cultivators who were far away felt shocked and awed. Whoosh! 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 Lin Wutian unsheathed his sword at an extreme speed. The sword light tore through the long river and rushed into the depths of untainted land. His body seized the sky. The Green Lotus Fairy steps seized the heavens had been modified. It was more advanced and faster. This was the result of the research of Green Lotus Sword Fairy after being suppressed for so many years. Its speed was much faster than the Green Lotus Fairy step. Whoosh! Afterimages filled the sky, and even the lightning couldn't catch up to them. Whoosh! 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 While Toei was still in shock, Lin Wutian made his move. Countless sword lights tore through the shackles, shattering the lightning elements and preventing them from gathering. Whoosh! How old is this guy? He can't be more than 100,000 years old. Damn! Have I been cultivating for so many years? Is he really just an upper-level warrior? The experts standing in the distance couldn't even raise their fighting spirit. They weren't even on the same level. Bush, 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 bush. Lin Wutian had no choice but to run. He kept teleporting his golden body while Tui chased after him, not giving Lin Wutian a chance to counterattack. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The two of them continued to teleport, tearing apart the void. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged close to 1,000 moves. Time passed, and several hours later, Tui was not tired at all. Instead, he fought even more valiantly. He was absorbing the thunder elements, and the Sky Thunder Hammer was also helping him absorb the elements. However, he had expended too much of his will, and his life force was being rapidly devoured. Lin Wutian was anxious. If Tui kept bothering him for 3 to 5 days, he wouldn't have enough time to complete the first test. Little divine bird, help me think of a way. I don't have time to waste on him, Lin Wutian said frantically. The little divine bird didn't even show its head. It lazily said, "It's none of my business. Solve your own problems." Poof! Lin Wutian almost spat out blood. This bastard was really good at tricking his master. Do you believe that I won't throw you into the thunder and lightning? Lin Wutian said frantically. The little divine bird was speechless and said helplessly, "What can I do? I'm a wise man, but even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. Do you understand? He has an eternal divine weapon, and he's not afraid of consumption. We can't force our way in. If we get injured, we won't be able to participate in the rest of the tests." Lin Wutian's eyes flashed coldly. He didn't see that Tui was weak at all. He knew that he couldn't wait, so he had to force his way in. Bush, 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 whoosh. One sword turned into 10,000, and each sword hit a bolt of lightning. 3 to 5 sword rays and a bolt of lightning perished together. Boom, 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 boom. The lightning was constantly smashed by the sword chi. Lin Wutian followed the sword chi and approached Tui. The originally dense lightning was torn apart by him, and he kept approaching Tui. Boom. Tui wielded the Sky Thunder Hammer and smashed it at Lin Wutian. Lin Wutian didn't want to waste any more of his energy, so he mobilized all his power to attack the Sky Thunder Hammer. Boom. The moment the two collided, the divine sword in Lin Wutian's hand turned into powder. He didn't even have a chance to resist. The Sky Thunder Hammer was too powerful. Lin Wutian's face suddenly changed. It was as if he had been hit by a star. The bones in his hand were broken, and his body flew dozens of miles away, crashing into a mountain. Boom. Bush. Tui was as fast as lightning. He held the Sky Thunder Hammer and smashed it at the mountain where Lin Wutian was. In an instant, the whole mountain was razed to the ground. The land covered by lightning was barren. The expert standing in the distance took a deep breath, and a trace of pity appeared in his eyes. It was as if he had seen Lin Wutian's corpse. Tui also felt that Lin Wutian couldn't survive this hammer, so he put the Sky Thunder Hammer on the ground. As a result, the ground collapsed, and the mountain collapsed. It couldn't bear the weight of the Sky Thunder Hammer at all. Just as lightning flashed and thunder roared, a figure's speed broke the limit. He waved his hand and condensed his energy into a blade. Then he slashed at Tui's neck. Lin Wutian smiled as blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. When your speed reaches its limit, there is nothing you cannot overcome. When you flattened the mountain range, my people had already left. You underestimated your enemy. However, there is punishment. The goddess of love asked me to take the Sky Thunder Hammer back. She wants you to take it yourself. Tui's face was pale, and a trace of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He didn't dare to move. If Yen Ao came, I wonder how long it would take him to walk out. Yen Ao's intelligence was simply abnormal. He probably would not lose to the 9-star saint. The three of them waited outside the labyrinth. Time passed little by little, and a month passed in the blink of an eye. At this time, Lin Wutian was nowhere to be found. This labyrinth of nothingness was as if everything was nothingness. Divine sense could not penetrate it, and neither could divine power or holy power. Even the Supreme Emperor could not shake this labyrinth back then. This labyrinth represented the crystallization of a civilization. Otherwise, it would not have been passed down to this day and preserved in such a complete state. Lin Wuqian groped and stroked the runes with his big hands. Looking at all the runes and the walls, they seemed to be the same. There was no difference. He could not figure out the use of intelligence here. 2 months later, Lin Wuqian did not find any clues. He could not help but feel a little anxious. Every time he walked to a dead end, he would return to the starting point. Now, he could not even find the starting point. I really don't believe this. The more challenging something is, the more this divine bird likes it. Look at me. The little divine bird ran out of the bloodline. It stood on Lin Wuqian's shoulder and looked around. It said solemnly, "This labyrinth cannot be empty. There must be treasures. Otherwise, who would spend so much effort to create such a labyrinth for fun?" Lin Wuqian sniffed and looked at the labyrinth with some expectation. He did not know how many times he had tried, but his strength could not hurt the labyrinth at all. If he wanted to walk out, he must find the pattern and rules. "I still have a month. Can you take me out?" Lin Wuqian asked. The little divine bird said confidently, "How can you mortals compare to this divine bird's intelligence? Look at me." Chapter 2130. The goddess of love, Yi Qinghan, and the others had been waiting outside the maze for nearly 3 months. There were only 3 days left until the end of the test. Did he fail? Yar Saint was a little reluctant. He knew that even if Lin Wuqian failed this time, he could not be blamed. After all, the great sage and the goddess of love needed half a year. Yi Qinghan was very calm. He was very confident in Lin Wuqian and the little divine bird. "Don't worry, there are still 3 days left," Yi Qinghan said lightly. Yar Saint took a deep breath. At this time, he could only wait silently. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the ground shook as if there was a slight earthquake. In the blink of an eye, light shone in all directions. Different mysterious runes rushed out of the cave. The mountain range above the maze shattered, and the entire maze appeared in their sight. The goddess of love, Yi Qinghan, and the others narrowed their eyes. They jumped into the sky and saw the entire maze clearly. It was bigger than a palace, and it was a hole. The lines on it were exactly the same, and there were no rules to be found. What did this little guy do? How did the maze appear? The goddess of love asked in surprise. Yi Qinghan was also a little anxious. He quickly said, "Let's go in and see if there is any danger." Whoosh! Without waiting for the goddess of love's permission, Yi Qinghan rushed in. Whoosh! The goddess of love rushed in with Yar Saint. At this time, Lin Wuqian and the little divine bird were digging a hole and had made a hole through a corner. It was a hole. The maze that even the great sage could not break through had been dug through by these 2 guys. "Ah, I knew it. There must be a mechanism here." The little divine bird laughed proudly. Lin Wuqian's face was also filled with ecstasy. Every place was connected, and it was impossible to penetrate. Only here, the little divine bird found something strange. After several collisions, a small hole had appeared. After being penetrated, there was a handprint groove inside. Lin Wuqian reached out and looked at his palm, then looked at the handprint in the groove. Feeling that it was about the same size, he knelt on the ground and pressed his big hand into the groove. Lin Wuqian curiously looked at the trough, but he didn't feel anything special. He thought for a while and then used his green lotus sword qi, which was the most powerful spiritual power, to send it into the trough. Boom! Whoosh! All of a sudden, the maze of illusions began to move from the inside. The paths changed, and the path of life became a path of death, while the path of death became a path of life. The wall in front of him split into 2, and a huge room appeared. It was connected in all directions, and in the hall, there was a platform that resembled a cockpit. There was a display screen on it, but it was in a breathing mode. "Yo, yo, yo, we found a treasure." The power that people like them can erupt with is extremely terrifying. If more than 10 great sages join forces to fight, this world will be like the previous civilization. But it will vanish into thin air. The little sprite said with a smile. It was as if the destruction of the world had nothing to do with her. She had no feelings at all. Everything depended on orders. She also had some self-control ability. Lin Wuqian smiled faintly and shrugged. This Void Palace number 9 requires too much energy. At most, it can be used as a defensive divine garment. Normally, it is not used unless necessary. Therefore, it is not very useful. As a turtle shell? Yi Qinghan was a little speechless. He did not expect that the condensation of the essence of the previous civilization would produce such a defective product. The little sprite was not angry at Yi Qinghan's mockery. Instead, she reminded Lin Wutian, "Master, I don't have much energy left. Next time, remember to collect more energy stones. I am not picky." After saying that, the entire maze quickly expelled the 4 of them from the screen. The maze shrank and turned into a palm-sized void palace that fell into Lin Wutian's hand. The goddess of love's face was as cold as ice. Her heart was in turmoil. This assessment was somewhat beyond her expectations. She could not accept what she had just heard and seen. Just treat it as a dream. Anyway, it was a useless weapon. It would not have the slightest impact on the great world. The goddess of love secretly muttered to herself. Then she said, "Prepare for the 3rd assessment. I will take you to the small arcane realm." He smiled proudly and said confidently, "The great sage is definitely not the end. There are immortals in this world." Amidst the lightning and thunder, Yi Qinghan suddenly felt enlightened. A ray of light exploded in his mind, followed by a burst of wild laughter. "Ha! I finally understand the meaning of the phrase, a frog at the bottom of a well. Back then, I didn't believe that there were immortals in this world, and I was sure that the great sage realm was the end. When I saw the material of the previous civilization, I still doubted its existence and could not accept it. Until now, when I see your attitude, I have a sudden realization." Yi Qinghan suddenly sat up and looked directly at the goddess of love. He said firmly, "Senior, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist." The goddess of love looked coldly at Yi Qinghan and asked disdainfully, "If I tell you that I'll become an immortal tomorrow, would you believe me?" Yi Qinghan shrugged and nodded. "That's possible. Once you have an epiphany, you can become an immortal in an instant. Anything is possible." "Ah." The goddess of love responded with a few cold laughs and did not say anything else. Yi Qinghan knew that he could not convince the goddess of love. If the goddess of love had the heaven-imprisoning Taoist scripture, but he did not, and she told him that there were immortals, he would probably think that she was talking nonsense. Seeing the 2 of them arguing, the atmosphere was not good. He quickly reminded them, "Void Palace number 9 is a useless weapon. Why do you care about what it says?" Yi Qinghan glanced at Yar Saint and replied, "Its existence is the reason. I believe that it has other uses." Just as Yi Qinghan said, Void Palace number 9 was not only used for defense and attack. It also had a terrifying skill, which was analysis. If an upper-level cultivator were to cultivate a powerful saint technique, the profound mysteries would be so profound that the upper-level cultivator would not be able to understand it even if they scratched their heads. However, Void Palace number 9 could break it down and analyze it, reducing the complexity to simplicity, allowing the upper-level cultivator to comprehend it to the small success stage in just a few days. In the goddess of love's dojo, spirit chi and elements were densely packed, and spirit plants were everywhere. Lin Wutian walked on the path and looked at the dojo. It was basically unrealistic to want to find the goddess of love's insights here. Only God knew where she kept them. "Little divine bird, I'm counting on you," Lin Wutian said helplessly. "No time." The little divine bird stood arrogantly on Lin Wutian's shoulder. It seemed that it was unhappy that it did not get Void Palace number 9. Lin Wutian was speechless. The little divine bird looked at Lin Wutian with disdain and said disdainfully, "You're so stingy. I won't tell you even if I find the insights." Lin Wutian hugged his head and sighed. What kind of spirit pet was this? It was simply a spoiled ancestor. "What do you want? I'll give it to you. You help me find the goddess of love's insights," Lin Wutian said helplessly. The little divine bird's eyes lit up. It could not wait to get into action. It said flatteringly, "Find her insights and let me comprehend it. I also want to cultivate to become a sage." Lin Wutian patted his head and smiled bitterly. "As long as you can cultivate to become a sage, I have no problem. Whoosh! The little divine bird flew into the sky and disappeared above the clouds. It looked down at the small secret realm. It was extremely fast. Its eyes were like stars, but they were full of greed and desire. "Ah, a sage, I'm coming." Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The little divine bird shuttled around the dojo crazily. It was getting faster and faster. It could tell whether there were treasures in a place with just a glance. The dojo was not small. The divine bird shuttled around for several days. Finally, it stopped in a valley full of birds and flowers. The elements here were particularly rich, and there was a wisp of love in the air. The little divine bird sniffed and said excitedly, "It should be here." Lin Wutian opened his eyes wide with excitement. He looked around sneakily. He felt that this test was too easy. Dig 3 feet into the ground. There's enough time. Lin Wutian rolled up his sleeves and was ready to work. "Brute! Watch me!" The little divine bird mocked him disdainfully. It twitched its beak and flew to some corners. The little divine bird was very talented. It was especially sensitive to divine treasures. It only took a moment to find a wooden box. There were runes on it. It could not be opened without the goddess of love. Lin Wutian reached out and took the wooden box with a smile. He was very nice to the little divine bird. "Let's go." Lin Wutian waved his hand and took the little divine bird away. It only took 10 days. There was still a long time before the test began. Lin Wutian walked out with the wooden box. The goddess of love's eyes twitched. She thought, "Where did this guy come from?" He completed the first test. It shows that he is indeed powerful. He took away the void maze for the second test. The third test only took 10 days. The goddess of love could not understand or accept it, but Lin Wutian did complete it. "Senior, I have it. Please take a look." Lin Wutian bowed and handed over the wooden box. A smile finally appeared on the goddess of love's devilish face. She reached out to take the wooden box and said, "The third test has been completed. For the fourth test, you have to use 15 years to comprehend it to the small success realm. These are all my techniques, including the Eye of Destruction, which can make a saint self-destruct. I am the only one who has succeeded in cultivating this technique. Even the GD did not succeed in cultivating it. If you have the ability, then comprehend the Eye of Destruction as well." Chapter 2133. Yi Qinghan watched as the goddess of love opened the wooden box and gave Lin Wutian a saint scripture. He was overjoyed. As long as Wutian enters the saint realm first, the crazy sect will have nothing to worry about. Only then can I create a true supreme of the same level, surpassing the 9-star saint and reaching the immortal celestial realm, Yi Qinghan thought to himself. This was exactly what he wanted. Every step Yi Qinghan took required careful planning. One wrong step, one hurried step, and it would lead to complete failure. The immortal celestial realm was like looking at flowers in the fog. It could be seen but could not be sought. The goddess of love seemed to have the intention of nurturing him. Not only did she pass on her knowledge and secret techniques to Lin Wutian, but she also gave him her knowledge and cultivation court. Yar Saint looked at it and felt even more respect and sympathy for his great-grandmother. "You can cultivate in the court. If there is anything you do not understand, you can ask me," the goddess of love said indifferently. Lin Wutian respectfully took the scripture and knowledge of the saints and thanked the goddess. Yi Qinghan pulled Lin Wutian aside and took out the elixir. He also took out 50,000 Holy Spirit stones and gave them to him. He said softly, "Wutian, the Holy Spirit stones will be used to activate the 9th Void Palace. Take this elixir first. When you reach the Saint Realm, the crazy sect will have a place. The Shrouding Sky Secret Realm will be our next target." "Master?" Lin Wutian looked at Yi Qinghan gratefully. The crazy sect had left him only one elixir, but Yi Qinghan still gave it to him without hesitation. Even his own son might not be like this. Yi Qinghan patted Lin Wutian's shoulder and smiled. "For the next 10,000 years or even 100,000 years, you will be under a lot of pressure. The crazy sect needs a saint. As for me, I do not have the opportunity yet. Only you can do it." Lin Wutian stood up straight and said respectfully, "As long as I am alive, the crazy sect will definitely occupy the Shrouding Sky Secret Realm." Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. Anyone could fight the insane sect, but he was more at ease with Lin Wudin. Only then would he have the time to comprehend the supremes of the same level, perfecting every detail to perfection. Go. 15 years later, we will head to the Oshi Holy Land. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Lin Wutian returned to the dojo of the Goddess of Love. The Goddess of Love also stayed behind to support Lin Wutian. She wanted him to reach the minor accomplishment realm in 15 years. But then, the Goddess of Love was stunned. Lin Wutian opened the 9th Void Palace and placed the Saint's Sutra and his insights on the console. He was ready to comprehend it, but the little elf suddenly appeared and looked at the Saint's Sutra. She used numbers and simple words to analyze the Saint's Sutra. Every step appeared on the screen. Everything became simple, just like drinking water and eating. There was no suspense at all. Lin Wutian was also a little dumbfounded. He did not expect Void Palace number 9 to use numbers and words to deduce the steps of cultivating the Sage Sutra. It is quite complicated, but it is not so complicated that it cannot be deduced and analyzed, the little elf said calmly. Lin Wutian and the Goddess of Love's foreheads were full of cold sweat. Was Void Palace number 9 really a useless weapon? Obviously not. Its function might not have been very useful in the previous civilization, but in this era, it was simply a celestial item. The little divine bird was wild with joy. It clearly followed the steps to cultivate. Its cultivation speed was even faster than that of a demon like Yi Qinghan. Lin Wutian did not need to say anything. He followed the steps to cultivate. It took him about a year to replicate 80% of the Goddess of Love's cultivation. Only the Eye of Destruction was left. Lin Wutian relied on his own talent and resources to push his cultivation level to the Saint Realm. But he was not in a hurry to swallow the elixir and directly advance to the Saint Realm. Instead, he put the cultivation method and insights of the Eye of Destruction on the console, hoping that Void Palace number 9 could also analyze it. Rows of numbers were analyzing the Eye of Destruction at an extremely fast speed. Soon, the entire screen was covered by numbers and steps, but the final result was still not analyzed. After a long time, Void Palace number 9 almost crashed on the spot. The cultivation method of the Eye of Destruction was extremely difficult to deduce with numbers and steps. Half a day later, the little elf in Void Palace number 9 appeared on the screen and said tiredly, "To cultivate the Eye of Destruction, you need a pure heart, origin blood, and an extremely strong mind. None of these can be missing." "You can get tired too?" Lin Wutian asked in surprise. "Don't you get tired?" The elf in Void Palace number 9 retorted. Lin Wutian shrugged, indicating that he could not answer. "Let me tell you something. You have a pure heart. The origin blood is in this goddess body. As long as she is willing, you only need to cultivate a strong will to cultivate the Eye of Destruction." "But I need to restart it. The calculation method of the Eye of Destruction is making me operate it too quickly. I can't take it anymore." After the little elf finished speaking, the screen flashed and then returned to darkness. After a long time, it restarted. The 1,000 Holy Spirit stones that Lin Wutian had put into the energy slot were all absorbed. This was a real glutton. No wonder the previous civilization said that it was a useless weapon. It consumed so much just to analyze the data. If one wanted to rely on it to attack or defend, even the Holy Land would not be able to withstand it for 3 to 5 days. The Goddess of Love thought for a moment, then took out a few drops of essence blood and gave them to Lin Wutian. Lin Wutian quickly entered a state of cultivation. He condensed a strong mind and continued to break through until he successfully cultivated his mind to the threshold of cultivating the Eye of Destruction. Only then did he officially cultivate the Eye of Destruction. 15 years passed in the blink of an eye. Colorful clouds floated in the sky above the land of love. The light was faintly discernible, but it did not condense. If a saint was here, he would definitely be able to guess that this was the prelude to the saint's path. During these 15 years, Yi Qinghan had been painstakingly cultivating the occult secret arts of the West in the holy city of love. He had cultivated his mind to the upper realm and controlled several elements. Each element had been cultivated to the lesser realm. Sheng had wasted these 15 years in vain. She had no idea how far Lin Wutian had cultivated the saint techniques during these 15 years. She was very nervous. Just when the 15 years were up, Sheng and Lin Wutian rushed to the goddess of love's dojo and waited anxiously. At this moment, the world suddenly shone brightly. Holy light covered the 9 heavens, and the multicolored light appeared together. This was the symbol of a saint's ascension. Lin Wutian had become a saint. Yi Qinghan was ecstatic. The sect of ecstasy finally had a saint of its own, and his cultivation would definitely not lose to existences like Xiahou He and the chess master. Ha! Yi Qinghan laughed out loud, clenched his fists, and shouted, "The heavens have treated my sect of ecstasy well." At this moment, the little divine bird rushed out of the dojo unwillingly and shouted, "Dad, come out. Ask your boss to give me an elixir. I also want to become a saint." Yi Qinghan looked at the little divine bird's terrifying aura, and his hair stood on end. His pupils shrank, and he could not understand how this little guy had cultivated to this level. Has it been 15 years? How can a little bird cultivate to the saint realm in 15 years? Yarsheng asked in surprise. The divine bird also ran out, looking confused. It trembled and asked, "How did you cultivate to this level? I've been cultivating for so long, and I'm only at the lower realm. Oh God, why are you so cruel to me?" Chapter 2134. The divine bird roared, and the little divine bird stretched out its claws to ask for the elixir. The atmosphere was lively. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He couldn't understand how Lin Wutian had managed to reach the saint plane in just 15 years. Lin Wutian was at most a gifted genius, but how had the little divine bird managed to reach the saint plane? Elixir. I want the elixir. The little divine bird looked at Yi Qinghan expectantly. Yi Qinghan was speechless. He said, "I don't have any more elixirs. Wutian is your boss now. Ask him if you have any problems in the future." Lin Wutian's aura was full. The clouds above the sky were covered with light. The pressure of a saint could not be restrained. The sword aura was so pure that even the goddess of love felt the pressure. The first thing Lin Wutian did after becoming a saint was to kneel in front of Yi Qinghan and kowtow respectfully. He said, "Thank you, master, for treating me like your own son all these years." Yi Qinghan didn't expect Lin Wutian to kneel on the spot. Before he could stop him, the light in the skies suddenly condensed into lightning. In an instant, it shattered the void and hit his head. Bang! Crack! Crack! Yi Qinghan was penetrated by the lightning. Smoke and fragrance came out of his body. Even his protective clothing was shattered into powder. His yin and yang 8 trigrams Taoist robe was stimulated. The holy golden body exuded a fragrance. He spat out a mouthful of smoke. He felt that his body was not his anymore. He fell to the ground and looked at the sky innocently. Lin Wutian had become a saint. Apart from heaven and the great saint, who would dare to accept the eternal kneel of a saint? Whoever kneeled would be unlucky. Even heaven would not agree. Lin Wutian was shocked. He quickly got up and helped Yi Qinghan up. He looked innocent and asked, "Master, are you okay?" Yi Qinghan's eyes were misty. He was very angry. He raised his hand slightly and said, "Get out of my way. You got me killed." Lin Wutian quickly let go of Yi Qinghan and stepped aside. He was afraid that he would hurt Yi Qinghan. Bang! Yi Qinghan fell heavily to the ground and grimaced in pain. Yarsheng laughed wildly. He never thought that Yi Qinghan would be in such a humiliating situation. The goddess of love covered her cherry lips with a smile. She was also amused by the unlucky Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan slowly got up. This lightning was even more terrifying than God's punishment. He had almost fainted the moment he had been struck. His hands were trembling as he pointed at Lin Wutian and said, "If you kneel before me again, I will beat you to death." Lin Wutian felt very wronged. He wanted to express his gratitude, but he didn't expect that he would end up harming Yi Qinghan instead. The goddess of love smiled. After attaining the position of a saint, other than the great sage and the firmament, even their parents are not allowed to kneel. Lin Wutian looked at Yi Qinghan. If this kind of ceremony was held in the Oshi sacred land, It would benefit the Oshi sacred land. This was because most of the creatures who participated in the heaven worship ceremony were Westerners. There were very few young experts from the East. It was even more impossible for the people of the arrogant sect to come. After all, it was too far away. Previously, the heaven worship ceremony of Xiaohe and the chess sovereign were mostly attended by Eastern experts. Now that the Oshi sacred land had also come, the younger generation of the Oshi sacred land would definitely take a step forward. Yi Qinghan licked his teeth and said faintly, "Let's go and visit the Supreme Emperor first. This heaven worship ceremony is a meeting gift for the Supreme Emperor." Yar Saint was overjoyed. The heaven worship ceremony was very important. For so many years, there had not been a heaven worship ceremony since the four saints had attained their Tao. Therefore, the younger generation of the Oshi sacred land was far inferior to those of the East. This time, there was finally an opportunity. The goddess of love nodded silently and waved her hand to sweep the three away. The stars moved and they crossed the sacred land continuously. Even though the saints were at the peak of their speed, it still took a long time to cross her territory. The four of them traveled all the way, taking turns with Lin Wutian. It took them 3 years to reach the hinterland of the Oshi sacred land. The sacred city of the Oshi sacred land was close to the far west. No wonder the Holy Empire could not invade here. It was too far. At this time, the sacred city's supreme emperor training hall was at the top of the Emperor Mountain. A vicissitude of life looked all the way from the goddess of love's territory to the sacred city. Who has advanced to the position of a saint? That's impossible. The immortal elixir is still on the way and has not been delivered to me. Who can advance to the position of a saint without relying on the immortal elixir? The old man murmured. Time passed. It was not until Yi Qinghan and the others entered the sacred city that the old man saw the appearance of the four people. They are Eastern cultivators. How can they advance to the position of a saint in my Oshi sacred land? Aren't they afraid that this old man will suppress them on the spot? The old man clenched his fists slightly and stared at the goddess of love beside Yi Qinghan. A glimmer of light appeared in his eyes. Even this girl has appeared. Who are these two Eastern cultivators? The old man's identity was obvious. He was the Supreme Emperor, the Supreme Saint. The goddess of love led the three of them all the way to the Mount Emperor dojo and climbed up the Mount Emperor. This was because the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage personally told him not to interfere with the Holy Empire and the Daluo astral world. This led to the destruction of the Daluo astral world and the disappearance of the 9-star sage. The goddess of love did not kill Yi Qinghan. The goddess of love knelt in front of the Holy Emperor and said respectfully, "Granddaughter Universal Love Saint greets Grandpa." Saint greets the great ancestor. Saint also knelt respectfully. Yi Qinghan, the sect leader of the insane sect, greets the great sage emperor. Yi Qinghan knelt on one knee and cupped his fists in Eastern etiquette. Lin Wutian, the second-generation disciple of the insane sect, greets the great sage emperor. Lin Wutian knelt on both knees and was extremely respectful. The holy emperor's mouth twitched. He did not understand what was going on with the insane sect. The disciple's cultivation was stronger than the sect leader. Yi Qinghan clearly had the aura of the Taiji immortal canon on him. What the hell was this insane sect? He had never heard of it before. Moreover, there was a saint realm cultivator. How come I have never heard of the insane sect? Logically speaking, both of your cultivations are not bad. I should know that you lead this so-called insane sect. Emperor Absolute Saint frowned and asked. Yi Qinghan smiled and stood up. He bowed and said, "It is normal for the great sage to not know about the insane sect. We come from a small region and have been in the eternal world for less than 10,000 years. Our sect is weak and not worth mentioning." Humph! Emperor Absolute Saint snorted with a disdainful sneer on his face. He then said, "If a sect with a saint is weak, then what are the 3,000-strong sects and the 100 great clans?" Yi Qinghan laughed awkwardly and replied, "Great sage emperor, you've misunderstood me. This poor disciple of mine has just broken through the eternal realm and stepped into the sage realm. The Kuang sect was indeed very weak before. It did not even have an official territory. The Holy Emperor didn't want to listen to Yi Qinghan's nonsense anymore. Yi Qinghan was too modest and hypocritical. If Lin Wutian's talent was considered poor, then what was the rest of the world? Let's get straight to the point. What do you want from me? Emperor Absolute Saint frowned and asked. Yi Qinghan was shocked and immediately became spirited. He cupped his fists and said, "Great Sage Emperor, this junior has 2 requests. The first is to bring my disciple to your sacred land to propose a marriage alliance with Saintess Ye." Before Yi Qinghan could finish his sentence, Emperor Absolute Saint said, "What if I object?" Yi Qinghan smiled confidently. "Great Sage, please don't be in a hurry to express your opinion. Please allow me to state the betrothal gift. It won't be too late to refuse." Emperor Absolute Saint looked at Yi Qinghan curiously. He wanted to know what kind of betrothal gift he was going to give. In addition to the immortal pill that I gave to Saintess Ye, the insane sect is willing to give 50,000 heavenly sacred stones as a betrothal gift. Other resources will be calculated separately. As long as the great sage agrees, everything is negotiable. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. 50,000 heavenly sacred stones and an immortal pill. Such a betrothal gift was unprecedented. Ancestor, I am sincere with beyond heavens. Saintess Ye was afraid that Emperor Absolute Saint would refuse again. She quickly straightened her body and said anxiously. Emperor Absolute Saint glanced coldly at Saintess Ye. The will in his eyes was self-evident. The goddess of love also reached out and pulled Saintess Ye's sleeve, indicating that she should not speak nonsense. A very tempting betrothal gift. Let's put the first request aside and talk about the second one. Emperor Absolute Saint said lightly. My insane sect wants to occupy the shrouding sky secret realm. I ask for the great sage's support. Yi Qinghan looked firmly at Emperor Absolute Saint, indicating that he was not joking. Ha! Emperor Absolute Saint laughed wildly. His eyes were full of ridicule and sarcasm. He stared at Yi Qinghan and sneered. You are very arrogant, very arrogant. Do you know how much it costs to occupy one of the top 10 secret realms? Yi Qinghan looked at Emperor Absolute Saint and thought for a long time. He said in a deep voice, as long as you are willing to let Saintess Ye marry Lin Wutian and publicly support my insane sect, we will be able to occupy the shrouding sky secret realm. What makes you think you can compete with the other holy lands? Lin Wutian, a rookie who just stepped into the eternal realm? I'm afraid that if you occupy the shrouding sky secret realm today, you will be uprooted by the holy empire the next day. Do you want me to be laughed at by the world? Emperor Absolute Saint questioned. Because I have the support of 3 great sages. In 100 years, my insane sect will have at least 3 more eternal sages. Wutian will be able to kill sages. Yi Qinghan's aura burst as he replied firmly. If they can't, we will bring your back. The Holy Emperor looked at the goddess of love with an apologetic look in his eyes. Back then, because he had hesitated for a few months, the goddess of love's life was bleak and she was unwilling to step out of the goddess of love's territory. Now that she had come out for this matter, it seemed like her attitude was very firm. The Holy Emperor turned his head to look at the starry sky and the earth. He did not look at the goddess of love. After a long time, he asked, do you sympathize with the Yar Saint and support her, or do you support the crazy sect? Both, the goddess of love said firmly. The goddess of love said firmly, Lin Wutian used my secret method to reach the saint realm. I can't say much about his background. I can only tell you that he cultivated from the upper realm to the eternal saint realm in only 15 years. You can imagine his talent. This sentence made the Holy Emperor's eyelids twitch. He could not help but stare at Lin Wutian. 15 years. Although the Holy Emperor was a supreme sage, he could not accept this fact. Lin Wutian took a deep breath and cupped his fists. Holy Emperor, I beg you to agree to the marriage. At most, the crazy sect will not occupy the shrouding sky secret realm in the name of the Oshi sacred land. We do not need your support. You can remain silent. We can take over the shrouding sky secret realm. The Holy Emperor thought for a moment and replied, I'll think about it first. You hold the heaven worship ceremony in the Oshi sacred land. What do you think? The heaven worship ceremony was very important. It was to cultivate the younger generation of the Oshi sacred land. Such an action was equivalent to benefiting all the young kings of the Oshi sacred land. Lin Wutian looked at Yi Qinghan. When he saw him nod, he replied, I will follow the supreme sage's will. The holy emperor smiled and nodded. Good grandson, I'll leave this matter to you. Inform the heaven worship ceremony to be held in 10 years. Open the teleportation array between the Oshi sacred land and the holy city. Open the green channel for all the talented young people and let them participate in the heaven worship ceremony. The goddess of love's face finally lit up. She bowed and said, Thank you, grandfather, for your approval. I'll do it now. The holy emperor glanced at Yi Qinghan and the others. He said to Yi Qinghan, Sect Master Yi, I won't keep you. You have my token. You can go anywhere. As for Lin Wutian and you two can stay. Yi Qinghan took the holy emperor's token and left with the goddess of love. Walking down Emperor Mountain, the goddess of love looked at Yi Qinghan and whispered, I can only help you this much. The rest is up to you. Yi Qinghan smiled. Thank you for your words. I will definitely go to the heaven ceiling prison again. The goddess of love didn't say much. She only reminded him, this token is the highest order of the Oshi Empire. Seeing it is like seeing the emperor. You can go anywhere, but it's best if you don't go to the ancestral land. It will make you look like you don't know what's good for you. Yi Qinghan smiled and replied, Goddess, you underestimate me. I won't be so ungrateful. You can go ahead. I'll just walk around. The holy emperor city was vast and boundless. It was dotted with stars, and the spirit energy was especially lively. Because the people of the Oshi sacred land weren't good at using spirit energy, they focused on the elements. At night, the holy emperor city had a different flavor. Yi Qinghan strolled on the streets. It was already late at night, and there were no pedestrians at all. At this moment, the divine bird popped out and said excitedly, Boss, I found the location of the spring of life. It's so rich in life energy. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He then restrained his greed and warned, This is a crucial time for me to negotiate with the Oshi sacred land. Don't talk nonsense. Don't go to the location of the spring of life. Otherwise, I'll suppress you forever. When the divine bird heard this, it immediately shrank its head and didn't dare to say anything else. Although Yi Qinghan liked the spring of life, he still needed to be rewarded by the holy emperor. Otherwise, the holy emperor would be disgusted. He wouldn't go for wool and come home shorn. Come, let's find an inn to rest for a while. Yi Qinghan led the divine bird through the streets and found a sleepless inn. The money here was also faith money, so it wasn't difficult. Yi Qinghan went to the room and began to secretly cultivate. He used the accumulation of these years to continue comprehending the sacred finger. Chapter 2137. The next day, a piece of news spread everywhere. 10 years later, the holy city of emperors will hold the saint's heaven worship ceremony. It had been countless years since a saint was born in the holy city of Oshi. The eastern holy city had a heaven worship ceremony, but the geniuses of the holy city of Oshi did not have the time to participate and enjoy the blessings of the heavens. This time, the heaven worship ceremony was held in the holy city of Oshi. This was the best news for all the major forces. The entire holy city of emperors was bustling with noise and excitement. The inns increased in price and no longer rented out. The prices of the houses also rose. Some inns even kicked out guests without any moral bottom line. Yi Qinghan had just checked in and was cultivating in seclusion when there was a knock on the door. I'm sorry, our inn needs to undergo maintenance. I hope you can cooperate. Tonight's room fee will be waived. A voice came from outside the door. Yi Qinghan's head was full of black lines. He had just started cultivating when he was woken up. How could he be happy? Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and looked around. How was this a refurbishment? But he did not expect the other party to raise the price and was kicking out guests. Feud Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He got up and tidied up before opening the door and leaving the inn. When he left, he realized that the flow of people had increased by a lot. Many people were walking out of the inn. It was fine if one inn needed maintenance, but what were the others doing? Soon, everyone was talking about the heaven worship ceremony and cursing these unscrupulous merchants. Yi Qinghan finally understood that he had been kicked out and was being charged a high price. Fuck, all crows are black. All merchants are evil. Yi Qinghan shook his head and did not want to say more. He walked towards the main city of the holy city of Oshi. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of Yi Qinghan. It was the Saint of Light. He looked excited. Lord Yi, how did your discussion go? The Saint of Light asked with a smile. Yi Qinghan made a helpless expression and shook his head. Nothing much. The great sage is not willing to help. As for the marriage, he is still considering it. The Saint of Light seemed to be more interested in the goddess of love and asked curiously, What's her attitude? Yi Qinghan looked at the Light Saint. He hadn't expected the Light Saint to have such desires. He couldn't help but laugh. She supports the marriage alliance, but she hasn't said anything about me occupying the shrouding heaven's secret realm. However, I can tell that she doesn't like it. The Saint of Light narrowed his eyes and asked in surprise, What's wrong? You even mentioned the request to occupy the shrouding heaven mystic realm? Is there something wrong with your head? Were you struck by lightning? Yi Qinghan was at a loss for words. The Saint of Light flicked his sleeves and left. He seemed to be really angry. Yi Qinghan pursed his lips and followed him. The emperor's residence, the government, and the city guards were all called to investigate the inns that had kicked out the guests. Every time they found an inn, they would kick out each guest and fine them 100,000 faith coins. In an instant, the innkeeper's face turned green. Yi Qinghan couldn't be bothered to mess around with the Saint of Light. He picked a random inn and checked in. The Saint of Light introduced him personally. If anyone dared to raise the price, he would even let Yi Qinghan stay for free. While the ceremony was being held in the Oshi Holy Land, in the ancestral land of the Spectre clan, an old man sat in the main hall of the Spectre clan's ancestral land. From the pressure he exuded, it was obvious he was a great sage. The Spectre clan elder was the ancestor of the Spectre clan. He had been in seclusion for countless years. Even the world had neglected him. Who would have thought that he would soar into the great sage realm? The Spectre clan elder knelt in the main hall, not daring to raise his head. How's it going? The Spectre clan elder asked indifferently. The Spectre clan elder prostrated himself on the ground and said respectfully, I've already informed the other sages. There's still 40 years left. What about your marriage? Did the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage not agree? The Spectre clan elder asked coldly. The Spectre clan elder could see the hatred in the Spectre clan elder's eyes. The Spectre clan elder rebuked. How could my true disciple be so useless? In reply to the forefather, I defeated everyone in that battle, but I was defeated by one of the heavenly Grandmaster Grand Sage's disciples. His physical body is extremely holy. I underestimated him. The Spectre clan elder replied in a panic. Useless. Your punishment is to go into seclusion in the ancestral grounds for 40 years. When the great sage ceremony is over, you will personally kill him. If you fail again, I will personally send you to meet the ancestors so that you don't embarrass yourself. The Spectre clan elder rebuked coldly. Chapter 2138. The Oshi sacred ground was preparing for the heaven worship ceremony, and so was the Gratian sacred ground. However, the Gratian sacred ground's heaven worship ceremony was much grander. Many sacred grounds were rushing to the extreme south, and even Lin Wutian's heaven worship ceremony was ignored. However, the Oshi sacred ground only hoped that their own people would participate in the heaven worship ceremony. Just as the Oshi sacred ground was preparing, a second piece of news came out. It set off a huge wave in the Oshi sacred ground. Everyone was shocked. The Holy Emperor will personally attend the heaven worship ceremony. In addition, he will announce a major event during the heaven worship ceremony. The world will celebrate and all sinners will be pardoned. This news even alarmed the older generation experts of the Oshi sacred ground. The 4 minor saints would personally come. The goddess of love would once again descend to bless the world. Several months later, the goddess of love found Yi Qinghan after finishing her work. When she asked if there was anything else she could help with, Yi Qinghan proposed to invite the 4 saints of the Oshi sacred ground to a banquet. He hoped that the goddess of love would give him some face and greet them. The goddess of love didn't want to agree at first, but she couldn't resist Yi Qinghan's request. After all, Lin Wutian was holding the heaven worship ceremony here. This was a huge favor. In the end, she could only agree. Soon, Yi Qinghan notified the Light Saint, Life Saint, and Power Saint. He didn't know if the grudge between the saints could be resolved, but once it was resolved, the 4 saints would definitely help him. Yi Qinghan and the goddess of love first went to the most luxurious restaurant in the Holy Emperor City. They sat on the top floor and looked down at the world. The two stood by the window and looked at the world. Flowers were blooming and everything was flourishing. Yi Qinghan asked, "Love Saint, if the world was plunged into misery and suffering or sacrificing the person you love the most, which would you choose?" The goddess of love was stunned and looked at Yi Qinghan in confusion. She didn't know what he was trying to say. Yi Qinghan smiled and pointed at the world. He asked, "I'll give you another choice. If the world was plunged into misery and suffering couldn't be exchanged for the person you love the most, would you still be willing to gamble and sacrifice the world to save the person you love?" The goddess of love thought for a moment and said sadly, "No matter what choice, I would choose to sacrifice the person I love if I was rational." Yi Qinghan indifferently. The goddess of love's choice was the goddess of love's choice, or was God of love's choice. Love Sage, how long do you think the deadlock between the heavenly reaching church and the Oshi Holy Land will last? Yi Qinghan asked again. The goddess of love thought for a while and replied, "I don't know about the background of the sky-reaching church. No one knows about it. But to be respected by the Holy Empire, they must be extraordinary. If they really fight with the sky-reaching church, I'm afraid they will be equally matched. At least, they will be in a stalemate for thousands of years. In the end, they will not be able to withstand it and stop." Yi Qinghan gazed at the goddess of love and slowly said, "Back then, because of your love, you were irrational and hoped that the Oshi Holy Land would support the Daluo astral realm. If the 3 saints had supported you without hesitation back then to attack the Holy Empire, the 9-star saints and the Daluo astral realm would not have been able to change the outcome. Instead, it would have caused the Oshi Holy Land and the sky-reaching cult to suffer. You would have regretted all living beings. Back then, because the Light Saint, the Right Saint, and the Life Saint loved you and perhaps had selfish motives, they stopped the Holy Land from helping the Daluo astral realm. However, they did not want you to regret all living beings and would rather you hate them for your entire life. You are family, and you are also a smart person." The goddess of love was stunned. She had been obsessed for so many years. But thinking about it carefully, if she had gone out to fight back then, the outcome would have been as Yi Qinghan had said. There would be no impact and the people would be plunged into misery and suffering. The atmosphere in the room froze. The Light Saint, the Right Saint, and the Life Saint had entered the room unknowingly. When they heard Yi Qinghan's explanation, their eyes were filled with emotion and excitement. The 4 saints' grudges had been intertwined for countless years and their relationship was extremely bad. If they could resolve it today, it would be great. Huff huff huff. Dong dong dong. The goddess of love's breathing was a little unstable. She sat on the chair dispiritedly. Thinking about the resentment of so many years, she felt a little sad. She murmured, "Was I wrong?" Yi Qinghan patted the goddess of love's shoulder and said solemnly, "The one who was wrong was not you. It was heaven's will. If you were strong enough, you could cover the sky with one hand and do whatever you want. Naturally, you would not have any regrets. If you were not strong enough, everything would be short-lived and anyone could take it away." Sigh. The goddess of love sighed. Her jade-like hands supported her jade-like cheeks. She looked so pitiful. "I'm sorry." The Light Saint, the Life Saint, and the Right Saint looked at the goddess of love's sorrowful look and could not help but apologize in unison. The goddess of love did not raise her head. She cried silently, apologizing for the resentment of all these years. Yi Qinghan patted the goddess of love's shoulder and comforted her. Chapter 2139. Time flew by and 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. All the young elites of the Oshi sacred ground rushed to the sacred emperor city. On one hand, it was to attend the heaven-worshipping ceremony. On the other hand, it was to meet the great sage and listen to what the great sage would announce during the ceremony. No one wanted to miss anything. Ever since Yi Qinghan resolved the grudge between the four sages, he had been in seclusion. There wasn't much change in the past 10 years, but he had improved a lot in each of his secret arts. At his level, his strength had increased by a lot compared to his peers, and he was infinitely close to a perfect state. There were still a few days before the heaven-worshipping ceremony. Yi Qinghan woke up on his own. His eyes were like torches and his aura was restrained. There was still a gap between his strength and that of a sage, which meant that he couldn't be compared to the 9-star sage. There was still a long way to go before he could become an undying immortal. I wonder if Void Palace number 9 can analyze the Saint Destroyer finger. Yi Qinghan was very curious. If Void Palace number 9 could analyze a sage's mystic art, would it be able to analyze a great sage's mystic art? So what if it was an immortal art? This doubt had been hidden in his heart, but Lin Wutian was still in the Chaos Dojo, so he couldn't confirm it. Dong dong dong. A light knock on the door woke Yi Qinghan up. Yi Qinghan was stunned. No one had come to disturb him in the past 10 years. Why would someone come to find him today? What? Yi Qinghan stood up. His black robe fluttered as his slender body stood upright. He casually opened the array and opened the door. His eyes suddenly lit up. The goddess of love's robe was as white as snow. Her face was like a peach blossom. She had golden hair, an enchanting figure, and a face that was like the work of the gods. She was mature, charming, and enchanting. She was different from Eastern women, but she had a different flavor. Goddess looks like this. How many men will be heartbroken? Yi Qinghan teased with a smile. The goddess of love smiled faintly. Her smile made Yi Qinghan's heart thump wildly. Her eyes, in particular, were extremely strange. Perhaps it was because of the eye of destruction, but those eyes were beautiful but also terrifying. That's right. It's because of this face that so many men have pursued me. I don't even know what love is anymore. The goddess of love's voice was like the sound of nature, melodious like the singing of a lark. Yi Qinghan was stunned by these words. He did not expect a saint to be troubled by such a question. Yi Qinghan kindly reminded her, love should be mutual consent. They are willing to sacrifice their lives for each other. I have never met the 9-star saint, nor have I interacted with him, so I don't understand him. However, there is one thing I must remind you of. There were 7 seats on the high platform. There were 2 main seats, one of which was occupied by the Emperor Sage. The other 3 saints sat on the right side. Lin Wutian sat at the head of the table on the right, and Yar Saint sat at the back of the table on the right. The middle seat naturally belonged to Yar Saint. Yi Qinghan walked up the high platform and bowed to the Emperor Sage. After that, he bowed to the 3 saints. He looked left and right, not knowing where to sit. The Emperor Sage smiled and gestured with his hand. You are Lin Wutian's legitimate teacher. Sit on the chair next to me. We still have to wait for him to propose a toast. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. Sitting side by side with the great saint was like sitting on pins and needles. Lin Wutian quickly got up and reached out to support Yi Qinghan, hoping that he would sit on the main seat. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to sit beside the Emperor Sage. He looked awkwardly at the spirits of the Oshi Holy Land. It was unknown how many people had gathered. It was densely packed. All the experts of the Oshi Holy Land had come. They all knelt respectfully in front of the Emperor Sage, afraid that they would blaspheme him. The audience ceremony was very simple. It ended quickly. The heaven worship ceremony was the highlight. Lin Wutian first bowed to the Tao of the heavens. Then, he faced Yi Qinghan and the Emperor Sage. He was about to kneel on one knee and bow to the most respected Yi Qinghan and the Emperor Sage. Yi Qinghan was so frightened that he jumped 3 feet high. He squatted on the chair and raised his hand to stop him. If you dare to kneel again, I will hammer you to death. The originally strict and solemn heaven worship ceremony was ruined by Yi Qinghan's action. The goddess of love suddenly laughed loudly, leading the heroes of the world to laugh. The emperor sage looked at Yi Qinghan in confusion. He did not know why his reaction was so big. The goddess of love quickly explained. When Wu Tian just became a saint, he knelt for him once. As a result, Lord Yi was struck by lightning. It was very serious, so he is afraid. Thinking of the scene that day, the always cold goddess of love could not help but cover her mouth and laugh secretly. Lin Wutian looked embarrassed. He did not dare to kneel again. He did not even dare to kneel on one knee. He directly toasted the great saint and Yi Qinghan. After the heaven worship ceremony was over, the heavens blessed them. Holy light bathed the entire Emperor Sage city. Everything within 1,000 miles was covered. All living beings in the world were blessed. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.